Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Jada Toys Ultra Street Fighter 2 The Final Challengers Fei Long. Now, we already looked at Ryu, the first of this series, and I told you how great he was. He was an awesome figure, and I said, I think Fei Long is probably a little bit better, technically speaking. So by the end of this review, we're going to see if I was right about that. But this line is very promising so far. It, as of right now, is the gold standard for this price point. It blows Hasbro out of the water. Like, it's not even close. Anything else at 25 bucks, you're not getting as much for your money, just based on these two figures alone. So this is a very exciting time, and it's very exciting to look at good figures for your money again. So I'm very happy to do that. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's get this guy off the stand and take a closer look. Same packaging as for Ryu, other than obviously where it is Fei Long specific. The rest is basically the same thing. Okay, now this guy stands just about 6 1/4 inches, depending on how you have his head adjusted. So I'm going to say 6 1/4 inches is fair. It's going to be about 16 centimeters. Here he is up against Ryu. They are about accurate scale-wise. Depending on where you look, their heights differ by a couple centimeters here and there. For basically every Street Fighter character, so I'm not too bothered by it. I think that's going to be close enough. Here he is, even though this is kind of a pointless comparison against a 20-year-old figure, here he is up against the Sota Fei Long. They are about the same height. As you can see, very clearly different styles, which leads me to what I want to talk about very briefly. This Fei Long figure is an interesting thing, because this Ryu doesn't exactly match any specific version of Ryu. It's kind of like just your general Ryu, but he has red gloves, which is based on artwork or later games as opposed to the brown gloves. So that's kind of it for Ryu, but for this Fei Long, it definitely doesn't match the game that these are supposed to be from. Now, that doesn't technically bother me, but this does, to me, look almost exactly like the Street Fighter 4 version of the character. Again, that's a little bit strange. Luckily, it's still like your classic look, just slightly different styling, so it doesn't really bother me, but it is worth noting. To me, this looks almost exactly like it was meant to be a Street Fighter 4 version. And maybe Capcom's just like, yeah, lean into that, or who knows, Capcom is in charge, it's their license, so they can tell Jada to do whatever they want. But he does have the darker pants instead of the gray, which would be from the source material of Ultra Street Fighter 2. His hair is dark. It is technically brown on the figure, but it's very dark, whereas in the game that he's supposed to be from, he's supposed to have gray pants and very brown hair, not dark. So a little bit interesting thing to note there. Okay, we're going to do a quick question of the day. I want to know, it's similar to the other question of the day, but this is a good one, I think. Which is your favorite 2D version of Street Fighter in terms of character designs? A lot of people told me Street Fighter 3 Third Strike was their favorite. I think I do actually agree. I like Alpha, but I think Third Strike did have really good sprites. And then which is your favorite of the 3D versions? And for me, I'm gonna go with 5, Street Fighter 5. Okay, and then just real quick before we get into the rest of the review, I told a buddy of mine I would help him out. If any of you guys have collected the Street Fighter Bulkies figures and are looking to sell them, let me know. I will get you guys in touch with each other. There's a few that he's looking for that he has been having trouble finding. Okay, now into the review. Aesthetically speaking, it's pretty darn good. There's one thing that stands out to me as a bit of a problem. It's not really a problem, but I think it's because of the Street Fighter 4 inspiration that seems to have been taken here. I would like to see his pants a little bit higher up on his waist. That tends to be how Fei Long is drawn in the 2D games. Drawn, however you want to, animated, whatever you want to describe it. So his pants look a little bit low to me, and it throws off the look of the character a little bit. Otherwise, it looks damn good. As far as skin tones, I mentioned how Ryu is very orange, and that was one of the things that held him back. Fei Long has a bit of orange to him as well, but not anywhere near as much, so I think this is a much better look. And people told me in the other review, people have different color skins, and so it's fine that Ryu looks orange. But here's the thing, source material exists, and neither of them are orange in the source material. So that's a thing worth noting. But his skin tone is shaded. Now, the interesting thing here is I mentioned in Ryu that it looked kind of like a wash, but I think it was just airbrushing. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. If you look up close, you can see what is most definitely not airbrush work. It looks like very purposeful, like tampography paint just put in place. Now, they're not all in the exact right spots, but it does have shading. If you want to call it shading, technically speaking, I don't know if that's right, but it does have coloring paint throughout all of the flesh tones. And like I said, they're not all placed properly, but it does bring the figure to life more than it would have without it, so I like that. His pants, technically gray, though they are very dark, they are textured. I love the texturing. It brings the figure to life a little bit more. That's nice. His feet are feet. They look like feet. So yeah, let's talk about the faces. As I mentioned with Ryu, they definitely went for a very stylized look. And this does look a lot like the Street Fighter 4 version, like spit and image if you ask me. I don't mind the cartoonish features. I can definitely live with it, but I think they're somewhere in the realm of fairly realistic looking bodies with kind of cartoonish faces, so I'd like to see them just kind of adjust away from the cartoon look a little bit, just like how exaggerated his mouth is, that kind of thing. His are not as bad as Ryu's, but it's kind of like take it or leave it. I don't personally mind, but I would probably prefer something a little bit less stylized, but they do look nice as they are. He does have a lot of QC issues, as with Ryu. I opened, I think, what was it, 2 or 3 of these guys, and some of them have really messed up paint jobs. Like for this head, for instance, the white spot for the teeth, that paint job was up on the lip. And for a lot of the Ryu and Fei Long figures that I've looked at, the white for the eyes is up past the outline for the eye. So there's definitely a bit of a QC situation. Same thing in just the molds. For my Fei Long, he's got a big scratch going up his abdomen right here, so that's unfortunate. They do have a CS number on the packaging. So here, I'll show you that in case you don't have it anymore and happen to need it. Right there. So I don't know how helpful they'll be, but that is worth mentioning. But yeah, aesthetically speaking, this guy looks really good. He's got a much better physique than Ryu. And people are like, yeah, but that's because it's Fei Long and not Ryu. And I'm not talking about the actual build, I'm talking about the sculpted details. If you look at Ryu's torso, really hoping to be able to do that with one hand. You look at Ryu's torso, his musculature is very stylized, especially in the abdominals. Very cartoonish. Same thing with his pecs even. Compared to Fei Long, they look like they're sculpted by an entirely different team. Fei Long has a much more organic, realistic look. I happen to prefer this significantly over Ryu, and that's another one of the benefits. So this guy has better skin tone and better sculpt. Everything else is going to be about the same in terms of quality, but he does look great. So I'm going to say this guy gets a 9.5 out of 10 for the aesthetic. At a $25 price point, you're not going to get a figure that looks as good as this from anyone else. All right, now as far as accessories go, you do get the alternate head. You get the stern head, then you get the one where his mouth is open. This one for me is still a little bit weird as far as that teeth paint job, but it's not that bad. It's okay. The eyes are definitely not centered properly. For hands, you get the 2 fist hands, then you get the 2 style posed hands. That's perfectly fine. And then you get his effect part, which is awesome. It is his flaming kick move. I don't know what the move is actually called, but it slides right over his whole leg, and you can do his kick move, which is excellent. I love that they included this. I think that's a wonderful accessory. Obviously, this is not the pose he would be in, but he can be in the pose. I'll show you at the end. This is a nice accessory. Mine's kind of tacky. It's like sticky, a little bit sticky on the outside. On the inside, it's not, so that's a good thing. I don't have to worry about it hurting the figure at all. But the outside does have just a little bit of stick to it. I'm wondering if you guys have experienced that as well. Nothing seems to be coming off in terms of paint, and it doesn't really grab lint or anything, but there is some kind of weirdness to it. So let me know if you guys are experiencing that. But it is a very nice accessory. It looks exactly like it really should for this. Like, he can definitely do his kick move. So I'm very pleased with that. So accessory wise, 9 out of 10. The only thing that really is holding this guy back, other than I would say more hands, would be that his kick move requires him to be in the air, and there is no display stand that comes with him. So understandable at the price point, but still we have to rate accordingly. All right, let's talk about the articulation. It's basically the same as Ryu, though I think a little bit better. So let's go ahead and run it. We have double ball peg on the top of the neck, single ball peg for the neck itself. And this is just another wonderful example of how I've been right all along talking about double ball pegs. Look at that. You can just move the head however you want without any wiggling, without any twisting, without anything. You just move it where you want it, and the head can go there. It's wonderful. Everybody who keeps arguing for this type of joint, the Marvel Legends hinge, because it can look up farther, that's the only benefit, literally the only benefit, and everything else is a detriment. So I don't get it. And if you do this right, they can look up naturally anyway. The only thing you can't do is break the neck. So double ball peg wins every time, if you ask me. And this is a perfect example. It's wonderful. Having the ball peg in the neck itself, that's nice. It's not anywhere near as necessary, but it does give you a little bit of extra range, so that's good. Butterfly joint on this guy. Works basically the same as Ryu's. I mean, like, somebody tried to tell me that you can actually get it way farther, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad you think that, but if you look, like, there's plastic here and plastic here. You can't go any farther, so the butterfly joint still is minimally useful. If you like butterfly joints, he does have them, and you do obviously get somewhat of the nuanced posing, like bringing the arms back is definitely helpful for certain poses, but they're still limited without totally destroying the sculpt. I think Jada did a good job of giving you a butterfly joint that does do something, and it didn't destroy the sculpt. For me personally, it just doesn't need to be there at all, or it should just break the sculpt even more and give you really good range. But this is somewhere in between, and that's perfectly valid. So if you like that, good. If you don't like that, well, you don't have a choice. They get to do what they want. And they did a good enough job for what they chose to do. For the shoulder, you get your full rotation, of course. Just better than horizontal on that hinge. That is fine by me. Bicep swivel is fine. Double jointed elbow on the pinless joints. Plenty of range. I haven't had any stuck joints or any problems with this guy. The colors do match well enough from the nylon to the PVC, so I like that. Wrists have a swivel and a hinge. Those work pretty much standard. For his diaphragm joint, which is sculpted way better than Ryu's, he can lean back nicely. That's just on this top joint. He leans forward, not as far as I would like, that's for sure. And then to the side, pretty well. It's not great, but it's okay. You do get rotation out of that as well. And then for the lower torso, of course, you're going to get your rotation there, and it does lean even more. You will get some gapping, but he can lean back nicely. He can lean forward. Nice enough when you mix those two. It's not great, but it's good enough. And then, of course, your side to side is going to be limited only by plastic bumping into itself. So very nice. Overall torso, very, very well done. So much better than, hang on. When Hasbro tries to be a real company and give you extra articulation, they make their Spider-Man look like a snowman and a fat belly, and they have all these extra weird joints that don't work for crap. Or you could just, do what works and is simple and give your figure the actual proper shape and better range. This review will be coming up very soon. This is done very nicely. Crotch piece is technically soft on the outside, so when you rotate the torso, it'll stretch and flex, so that's good. As far as the hips, it'll flex a little bit, but you don't get a ton of flex out of the crotch for the hips, but you can see he kicks high, kicks all the way up to horizontal, no problem. Going back, you get a little bit, not a ton, but that's probably going to be enough. And then going out to the side, full on splits. It's almost like hips aren't that hard to do, but Hasbro just can't seem to get it right. These work very nicely, I like that. Of course, you get your thigh swivel right there. Double jointed knee with proper proportions for the legs. You can see the lower leg, and it's not exact, but it's close enough. You can see the lower leg is about the same length as the upper leg, so that's good. Plenty of range, no problem there. Ankles rotate at the pant cuff, so that gives you extra range. Feet go all the way back, all the way forward, and you get an ankle rocker where if you mix it with that spinning ankle part, you get the perfect ankle rocker, so that's good. Only thing you're missing on this guy, just like Ryu, in terms of actual joints, would be the toe hinge. I personally don't mind. I do think for Street Fighter characters it would be a nice benefit, or it would be a benefit to have it, but it's not necessary by any means. And his articulation does work really well, and a little bit better than Ryu's even. So this guy's gonna get for the price point, a 9.5 out of 10. Show me a domestic figure or show me any figure that's $25 that's gonna pose as well as this and look as good as it during the posing. You can't do it. So far, Jada is just making everyone else look silly at this price point. Not every figure ever, but this figure costs more than this figure. This figure looks ridiculous. It's nuts to me. Okay, so time for the final verdict. I was right, Fei Long is better than Ryu. Ryu is a super fun figure. I love that figure, and Ryu's one of my favorite characters anyway, so I like it a whole bunch, but objectively, Fei Long is better. The issues Ryu has are fixed on this guy. Some of them are universal, like the faces being a little bit weird and quality control issues. But skin tone's better, paint job's better, sculpt is better, range of motion is better. Ryu's super fun to pose and handle. This guy's even more. So if you don't care which one you buy, this is the one to get. If you're tied to a character, obviously that's going to be a big factor. But objectively, easily one of the best figures of the year so far. And I'm going to be doing a top 10 figures of the year so far video pretty soon. If you guys like that idea, let me know. All right, so I'm going to give this guy a final rating of 9.5 out of 10 for $25. alternate head, alternate hands, and a fire accessory. And it looks this damn good, and it poses this well, and it's this fun to handle. It's not a pain in the ass like half the figures are when they can pose well. Jada's making people look silly. These figures are wonderful so far. I'm so thrilled to be able to collect fun figures again at a good price point. So yeah, easy 9.5 out of 10 for Fei Long here. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos every day but Wednesday. Usually I've been sick, like really sick lately, so forgive me for that. But normally it's every day but Wednesday, and I have thousands of videos already on the channel for the days that I happen to not be able to upload. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.